What's going on, y'all? It's Athletes Culture again, coming at you with another video. So this weekend, November the 20th, 2021, we got Terrence Crawford taking on Showtime Shawn Porter for the WBO welterweight title. And a lot of people, this fight was being built up to be a very big time fight, but, kind of lost some steam with some of the news coming out from the WBC convention that Canelo Alvarez was going to take on Ilunga Makabu for cruiserweight belts. I put cruiserweight in quotations because it ain't really a cruiserweight title in my opinion. They being fought at 200 pounds. But that made the Terrence Crawford-Shawn Porter fight lose a bit of steam. Nonetheless, here we are. The fight's going to go on. I think it's going to be a big fight of epic proportions at the welterweight division, especially because of the fact that Terrence Crawford hasn't really been quite tested by some people's books or some people's account, that he hasn't been quite tested at the welterweight division. He really hasn't fought any quality fighters at that division. So it leads people to speculate, is he really pound for pound #1 in the world, or should he be ranked that high? Well, for starters, let me tell you this. He's an undisputed champion at 140, so yes, that marks off. He's undefeated. He hasn't lost at 147. Has actually beaten some quality fighters if you really look at it. People like the likes of Amir Khan, Jose Benavidez, Kell Brook, though Kell Brook isn't the same Kell Brook, that Errol Spence had fought. But one thing I would say when it comes to Terrence Crawford, many people don't know of him. Many people didn't know of him until he started attaching his name to Errol Spence Jr. He's been attached to Errol Spence. And Terrence Crawford, he's much older than him by at least 3 or 4 years than Errol Spence. So, his time is now. He has to cash in right now. All right. Errol Spence, if he were to retire today, will be a much more popular fighter. His resume will be intact, and, people wouldn't question whether or not he's a Hall of Famer or not. This is somebody who has had an extensive, a very solid amateur career. I think he was in the U.S. Olympic team. Actually, he was on the U.S. Olympic team. Had quality fights. He fought them. People that were going to be linked to him throughout his career, like the Danny Garcias, the Shawn Porter, the Mikey Garcias. He fought them and he beat them. Even Lamont Peterson, Chris Algieri, he fought those guys and he beat them. So, however you want to put it or say about Errol Spence is set. He doesn't need to fight Terrence Crawford. Terrence Crawford needs Errol Spence more than Errol Spence needs Terrence Crawford. That's just the fact of the matter. All right. Now, for Terrence Crawford, when we look at it, fighting Shawn Porter, both of them have a lot to gain. One, this will gain validity to Terrence Crawford that he is a top welterweight because he fought what many would say a very quality welterweight fighter in Shawn Porter. All right. For Shawn Porter, if he were to beat Terrence Crawford, not only does he get a belt, a WBA welterweight belt, but it sets him up for a rematch against Errol Spence, the top welterweight in the division. Their fight was a very close fight back in 2019 where it went to split decision. And quite honestly, it could have been a draw. If not for that knockdown that Errol Spence delivered to Shawn Porter, that fight would have been a draw. That was a very tough fight for both of them. Errol Spence had to dig deep. He landed the knockdown, and hey, there you go. He got the win because of that. In my opinion, he got the win because of the knockdown. Now, for Shawn Porter, this is everything. Believe it or not, this is everything to him. If he were to beat Terrence Crawford, there's no reason why if Errol Spence doesn't take the rematch with Shawn Porter, he's for sure ducking at that point in time. If he beats if he beats Terrence Crawford, Shawn Porter shoots up in the rankings. Shoots up. Definitely you have to start talking about him in the top 10 pound for pound list. Off tops, if he beats Terrence Crawford. And then on top of that, he's going to get the money, the recognition, all of that. So this is a lot for Shawn Porter, who I think is around the same age as, a Terrence Crawford. I'm not quite sure. So, this is his time. This is his time to, to cash in. He's 34 years old. Just looking at Terrence Crawford, also 34. This is his time. This may be his last big money fight. All right. And Shawn Porter hasn't really fared too well when he has fought the top quality opponents like the Kell Brooks, the Keith Thurmans of the world, the Errol Spences, those are his losses. Even against Ugas, which many say he actually lost that fight against Yordenis Ugas. But one thing about Sean Porter, he's going to bring the pain. He's not going to quit. I don't see him getting stopped at all. I think he's too strong for that. However, do I see him really winning it? The answer will be no. From what I see, when he fights the top quality fighters, and Terence Crawford is a top quality fighter, he has the athleticism, he has the skill. Sean Porter just happens to fall short, And I don't think there's going to be much difference this time around. Now, I see on Twitter and throughout the social media spaces and YouTube video, some people who are Terence Crawford fans, obviously, are saying he's going to stop Sean Porter, but I don't think it's going to be like that. I think it's going to be a dog fight. I mean, this fight may go into, in my prediction, it's going to be a split decision. A split decision in favor of Terence Crawford. That's the way I got it. How it would turn out, who knows? But I got a split decision, Terence Crawford being the favor in that one. Could be like something, I don't even really want to just give my prediction on how it's going to be scored, but just, it's going to be tight. It's going to be a tight fight. We're not too sure, but it's going to be a tight fight. That's the way I had it. Terence Crawford is going to really see that if he had crossed over to the PBC, and honestly, this is his last fight for good reason with Top Rank. He's going to see that if he steps over to the PBC, the quality of welterweights that are there are completely different from the quality he's been fighting at Top Rank. Now, for many reasons, it was comfortable. He was guaranteed about $4 to $5 million each fight at Top Rank, comfortability. But when you want to be the greatest, when you have to go for the greatest, you're going to have to take risks. That's what made Floyd Mayweather so special. He got out of his comfort zone. He bought himself out of his contract with Top Rank because he knew staying under them, he wasn't going to land the big fights. He wasn't going to be the household name that he is today, Money Mayweather. He betted on himself, it took that risk, and look at where he is today. He succumbed to Oscar De La Hoya's demands as coming in as a B-side in this fight with De La Hoya. He understood that. He understood the business of boxing, all right? Him, Leonard Ellerby, Al Heyman, they understood the business fact of it, that if you want to be the man, you're going to have to beat the man. And in doing so, you're going to have to succumb to the man's demands. You're going to have to succumb to what he is asking for, what he is demanding. And, Terence Crawford's just got to have to do that if he's going to fight Errol Spence. Because like I said earlier, he needs Errol Spence more than Errol Spence needs Terence Crawford. Period, point blank. However you want to put it. We don't know. Many casual fans and even some so-called boxing experts don't care about Terence Crawford, would not know about Terence Crawford if not for the fact that he attached himself to Errol Spence. That's the fact of the matter. You can't talk about Terence Crawford without mentioning Errol Spence. But you can talk about Errol Spence without having to mention Terence Crawford. That's period, point blank. That's the fact of the matter. So, Terence Crawford, after this fight, he's got to bet on himself. He has to cross the street. He has to come over to the PBC. He'll be a free agent. Let him get past Sean Porter. He'll be a free agent. Once he comes over to the PBC, then, hey, I don't see why there shouldn't be, a fight being made between him and Errol Spence at that time. Like, there may be some tune-ups in between, because Errol Spence is going to have to, handle some title belt obligations. But to say that he doesn't fight, Terence Crawford, I think that fight still gets made. I still think that fight gets made. So, who knows what today may end up. I think there's other good fighters out there that I would love to see, that are coming up the ranks. Fighters like Carlos Adames, I would definitely like to see him somewhere within the mix in a few years at 154. Some nice fights that could be made for Errol Spence at that division, if he wants to move up, if he wants to move up to if Errol Spence wants to move up to 154, he can make that happen. Fight a bigger fight like a Carlos Adames who's making a name for himself. He's going to take on Sergey Derevyanchenko later on this year in December. So we shall see. There's a lot of hot names out there, or up-and-coming names, I should say. Up-and-coming names that we would like to see in fights get made. Everybody obviously wants to see the Terrence Crawford versus Errol Spence, but let Terrence Crawford get past Shawn Porter. I want to see something. I want to see, can he dig deep and, you know, do something different that Errol Spence was unable to do. But I don't really see him stopping Shawn Porter. I don't see Shawn Porter getting stopped at all. If anything, I think it becomes a split decision, and we're going to see more. We're going to tip our hats more to Shawn Porter and what he was able to take Terrence Crawford, the realms that he was able to take him. And through that, who knows? This may be a setup where Errol Spence sees a chink in the armor of Terrence Crawford, like, hey, you know, he didn't look too great against him. Because quite honestly, a lot of people say Errol Spence didn't look too great against Shawn Porter. All right? He didn't look too great. But he got the job done. That's what matters. So I got a split decision. You know, we shall see how things go in that fight. You know, it could be tough. It's going to be a tough fight. It will be a tough fight. Now, for the keys to victory for both fighters, all right? So, if Terrence Crawford is going to want to beat Shawn Porter, what he's going to have to do is he's going to have to mix it up. Definitely, I say he's going to have to, you know, he switches from the southpaw into the from the southpaw to the orthodox stance, you know, throughout his fights. I think if he just stays southpaw throughout the whole night, continues to try to walk Shawn Porter down, you know, take him, you know, just straight deliver the pain to him, he may get the stoppage. I mean, he may drop him. Where, like I said, I think it's going to be a split decision, but it could be an Errol Spence situation where if he just stays in the southpaw, in that essence, then continue to take the pain to him, try to walk him down, you know, right there and then, I believe Terrence Crawford will knock down Shawn Porter if he does that. However, on the flip side, if Shawn Porter shows us a different level of boxing skill that he somehow has pulled out, where he's able to just constantly, you know, hit Terrence Crawford to the body with different combinations, go upstairs, go downstairs, it's going to be a long night for Terrence Crawford, and we may see an upset. We honestly may see an upset, because I don't know if Terrence Crawford has ever fought anybody of the likes of Shawn Porter, who's going to come at you like a buzzsaw. You know, I can't necessarily think it throughout his record if he's ever fought anybody like that. Definitely not at 147. But at 140, I mean, people let me know. I can't think of it if he's fought anybody who is as active as Shawn Porter. If Shawn Porter, you know, keeps his punch count high, continues to move, continues to forward, you know, press Terrence Crawford, you know, we may see a different upset. Terrence Crawford may have to shell up and go into a defensive mode. Now, I don't see that. That's not his character. I don't necessarily see that in him. But if Shawn Porter just straight blitz him, hey, who knows? Anything is possible. Anything is possible, like KG says. Anything is possible. All right? We can see it where that split decision ends up being in favor of Shawn Porter. All right? We may see it that way. But I definitely see it will be almost like how it was with the Errol Spence fight. Terrence Crawford may get the late knockdown in which, you know, right there and then he's going to end up. If he's going to score a knockdown, I look at it being somewhere around round 9, 8 and 9. I think round 9, he gets a knockdown, and then that may be the difference in the fight where he ends up winning it. But who knows? Who knows? You know, I think the mere fact that Terrence Crawford can switch from the orthodox into the southpaw, I think if he just stays in the southpaw stance, you know, fights him with the southpaw, that type of, you know, where Shawn Porter's an orthodox fighter and Terrence Crawford being a southpaw fighter, that kind of slip up, you know, feet getting entangled. Shawn Porter, you know, we don't know how he is technically in handling, you know, much southpaw. The last southpaw he did fight, you know, notoriety was Errol Spence, and Errol Spence beat him by split decision. However, you know, he just has to apply that same game plan, I think, in which he did with Errol Spence. He did that, but we got to see a different level of skill, defensive tactics, you know, where he's got to cut off certain angles that Terrence Crawford likes to take. You know, he has to cut that off and, you know, and continue to come at him like a buzzsaw throughout the fight. He gets that. He gets the victory. Sean Porter could get the victory like that. But this fight's going to be closer than a lot of people are saying, especially the Terrence Crawford fanboys. This is going to be a real test to Terrence Crawford's quality, how well he's going to be able to dig deep and get the victory. I believe he's going to win by split decision, like I said, but we shall see. All right. I want to hear what y'all have to say. Like, comment, subscribe down below. I'm out.